Welcome to everyone to this online plenary session at the 13th ACEDE conference. My name is Isabel Olmedo Cifuentes and I'm part of the organizing committee. I'm very pleased with moderating this session. And before introducing our speaker, I would like to encourage you to post your questions and comments at the chat. And I'll transmit them to our speaker at the end of the speech. It's a pleasure to welcome Professor Claudio Giachetti, who I'm going to introduce you with a brief description of his CV. Claudio Giachetti is full professor of strategy at the Department of Management and at Foscari University of Venice, Italy. He was visiting researcher at the University of Zaragoza, Spain, and at Cass Business School in London, UK. And his primary research interests concern competitive dynamics and product innovation in rapidly changing technological and institutional environments. His work has been published in various journals, including Academy of Management Journal, Strategic Management Journal, Organizational Science, Journals of Operations Management, Strategic Organization, Research Policy, International Business Review, European Management Review, among others. Okay, he's also associate editor for Business Research Quarterly. Over the years, he has been consulting on issues of corporate strategy, competitive analysis, and product innovation with a variety of clients from private sector. He has also taken part in national and international research projects related to industrial leadership, product imitation, and alliances and competitiveness in emerging markets, among others. Today, he is going to present us the speech titled How Consumer Electronics Firms Use the Internet of Things to Build Their Competitive Advantage. Professor Giachetti, again, welcome. And thanks for your participation today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this introduction. A very nice introduction. I'm very glad to be here. It's really an honor to participate to this conference and present my work. So I'm sharing my presentation. Okay. So let's see whether I can. All right. So it's kind of loading. So, I mean, let me search it. All right. It seems a bit slow, but can you see my presentation?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
We can see it.
All right, fantastic. So thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. I like very much the topic of this year conference, and thanks very much to this conference organizer for asking me to say something about Industry 4.0. So in particular, I would like to say something about Internet of Things and the research I'm conducting on this topic, and maybe suggest some opportunities for future research. So as you said, most of my research is focused on competitive dynamics in technology-intensive industries, the mobile phone industry in particular. And yeah, I mean, the mobile phone, nowadays smartphones are not only the quintessential of convergence, because with the phone we can do almost everything, but they are becoming also an important terminal, an important remote control for managing an endless number of internet connected devices, so an ecosystem of internet connected products. So the Internet of Things, actually, which is a kind of result of Industry 4.0, right? And yeah, I mean, what I'm interested in particular is consumer Internet of Things, because we know that there are there's both industrial and consumer Internet of Things. So industrial Internet of Things, I followed a couple of presentation and plenary over previous 2 days. Most of them were focused on industrial Internet of Things, right? So industrial Internet of Things is the mix of devices, technologies, and software application used by a company to make its supply chain and manufacturing processes more effective and efficient, right? Consumer Internet of Things instead is still related to technologies connected to the internet, but these technologies, and both hardware and software, are mounted on devices that are used by consumers in their daily life, right? And the mobile phone, nowadays smartphones, are actually the key devices used not only to serve the internet and have access to an endless number of applications, but with the phone we can also control lots of other internet connected devices, right? So I would like to offer you some insight about these two research questions today. So how consumer electronic firms use the Internet of Things to build up and sustain a competitive advantage, and how consumer electronic firms design their business model to exploit the opportunities offered by the Internet of Things, right? So just give me like 1 minute to set the context, right? So what we mean for Internet of Things. So we have Internet of Things when network connectivity and computing capability are extended to objects that traditionally did not have these kind of features, right? And these objects allow a company and the user itself to collect information and to exchange data with the minimal human intervention. Okay, so in this picture we have the smartphone that is at the center of an ecosystem of internet connected devices, right? So thanks to the platform mounted on a phone, we can communicate with an endless number of other devices, most of them not traditionally designed to have network and computing capabilities, right? So the value chain, the Internet of Things value chain is quite complex, right? It's quite complex, but we could synthesize the IoT value chain mainly on 3 layers, right? So we have the hardware, and here the key components are devices, for example, internet connected devices, like, again, mobile phones, smartwatches, tablets, home appliances, because nowadays we have also these huge number of home appliances that can be connected to the internet and it can be controlled with the phone, right? So, for example, refrigerators, air conditioner, air purifiers, right? So devices. Then we have sensors that are technologies mounted on these devices that are capable of collecting information from the external environments, right? So a key, for example, player manufacturing center is ST Microelectronics, and communication hardwares that are, for example, IT modules or antenna. These are technologies that allow, like a device, after have collected information from the sensor, to send this data to the backend system where the data will be actually processed, right? So key players in the manufacturing of IT modules are Qualcomm or Quectel, okay? Then we have the connectivity networks that could be cellular, fixed, satellites. Here the key players are telecom carriers like Vodafone, Telefonica, those that own the telecom networks, and manufacturers of telecommunication equipments, right? So Ericsson, Nokia, Huawei, and so on and so forth. And then we have the software part of IoT. So applications. These could be software platforms, like I said before, so platform mounted on internet connected devices, for example, iOS for Apple products, Google's Android, right? And then think about the endless number of modifications of Google Androids developed by other and said vendors, right? So software platforms that, thanks to application, can allow a smartphone owners to control this ecosystem of internet connected devices. And then we have cloud computing firms, okay? Because some of the, I mean, firms in the nowadays IoT ecosystem need to collect data and need to produce analytics, right? Based on these big data, this huge amount of data. These data need to be stocked somewhere in the cloud, thanks to huge servers, and need to be processed. So key players here are Amazon with its subsidiary Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Alibaba Cloud, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the software part of IoT. So my presentation today will be focused on consumer IoT. So for consumer IoT, we mean personal IoT devices, okay, like smartphone and other portable devices used by consumers in their daily life, and internet-connected devices that can be found in the homes of individuals, right? So that are typically called home IoT devices, like I said before, home appliances. All right, so there are a number of trends that can be observed in the nowadays consumer electronic industries. First, device vendors are increasingly trying to build up their own platform and their own ecosystem of internet connected devices. What is interesting here is that firms are differing quite a lot in terms of business models. So what I pop up right now is the number of platforms, at least some of them, the main one, used by the players in these slides. So we have, for example, cases like Apple, which designs internally both its platform, iOS, for example, or watchOS. These are the operating system mounted on its portable internet-connected devices, and its hardware, okay? For example, all these products, tablets, phones, personal computers, and a number of home appliances are currently designed by Apple. So the company wants to have full control of its key product. However, the company is recently collaborating with a number of players, for example, in the home IoT environments that produce product by themselves, sell this product with their brands, but Apple offer to these guys full compatibility. Okay, full compatibility. So with the Apple platforms, you can control an ecosystem of product. You can control also an ecosystem of product that are designed and manufactured and branded by third-party partners. Okay, very different the case, for example, of Xiaomi. Xiaomi has as main platform an ecosystem MIUI that is based on Android, right? And the whole ecosystem of internet connected devices that is huge and much wider than the one of Apple is branded with the name of Xiaomi, but all these products are designed by startups that collaborate with the company. Okay, so the company said, and we will see in a minute the case of Xiaomi. The company says, look, my philosophy is to compete in the market with the smartphones that need to be considered at the same level of Apple high-end super premium products. So you will have to design these internet connected devices. They could be drones, they could be air purifier, they could be smart TV, that need to be designed and with performance that can be comparable with the super premium segment. But the company do not neither design nor manufacture this product. It outsources the design and manufacturing of these internet connected devices to third-party partners, mainly super innovative startups in China, that the companies control with the percentage of equity that is always lower than 50%, but you know, Xiaomi help them financially, but maintain a kind of, but once that they maintain a kind of financial independence, right, and legal independence. And then we have cases like Samsung that it still relies on Google Android as Xiaomi, but it also has its own platform based on Linux kernel that is Tizen. Okay. For example, all operating systems used in Samsung smart TV and smartwatches are Tizens, okay? So its own platforms. And the company has recently designed SmartThings, that is a platform specifically designed to control an ecosystem of internet-connected devices. Most of them directly designed and manufactured by Samsung. Think about refrigerators, air purifiers, washing machine, and so on and so forth. Xiaomi itself has also recently developed a similar platform that is called Xiaomi Vela. So you see, there's an increasing tendency in want to have these guys want to have their own independence, okay? They want to be independent in terms of the platform, okay? Because the logic is that once the consumer is in, like once the consumer become familiar with the use of a certain platforms, then it will probably purchasing products that perfectly match with the platforms, right? So all the ecosystem of Xiaomi internet-connected devices are specifically designed by these third-party partners to be compatible with MIUI, okay? Xiaomi platforms. The same Samsung, okay? All these ecosystem of internet-connected devices that are designed and produced by Samsung and sold to consumer with the Samsung brand works perfectly with Samsung platforms, right? For example, Tizen or SmartThings, okay? So you can connect these devices with other platforms, but you won't be able to exploit 100% of their features. Then there are firms like Google that are mainly platforms suppliers, okay, with the Google's Android, but they also have an ecosystem of internet-connected devices. There are firms like Realme, probably you're less familiar with this product, but I'm sure that in 4 or 5 years we will have these guys very operative in Europe as well. Now we have mobile phones of Realme, but I'm sure that soon will come also an ecosystem of internet-connected devices in Europe. Now they are very strong in China. They have actually copied the strategy of Xiaomi. Okay, so they began with the smartphone. They were very aggressive in terms of prices with the smartphone, and once the brand image of the company will become sufficiently strong, they will introduce in the market also internet-connected devices. But you see, they have a different business model because they do not have their own platforms. They use a platform of Oppo, which was initially the companies controlling Realme, that has itself developed an operating system, ColorOS, based on Android. So it's, you know, the scenario is getting quite complicated. All companies have its own platform or relies on platform of others and tries to build up its own ecosystem. But the game is try to increase as much as possible the controls on these two technologies, right? The platform and the ecosystem of internet-connected devices. For example, another trend I'm observing in order to increase the user experience, right, in terms of IoT ecosystem products, is the development of platforms that can be mounted on this ecosystem of internet-connected devices with minimal adaptation. Because think about what's happening today. In Apple products, tablets, smartwatches, and smartphones, we have a kind of adaptation of macOS, okay? So we don't have exactly the same operating system. We don't have exactly the same platforms. So for example, in smartwatches, we have watchOS. In smartphone, we have iOS. In tablets, we have macOS. So you see, it's yes, the platform of Apple, but it requires modification to be mounted on different IoT devices. The same does Samsung, and the same does, for example, Huawei. The same does Google. So currently we have we have Android in smartphones, but we have Wear OS in smartwatches, and the company is now building up also its IoT platform called Cloud IoT Core. So you see, currently we have companies that, yes, control the platform layer, but in order to this platform to be mounted on different IoT devices, this platform need to be adapted. A trend instead is to have a unified operating systems. An operating system that possibly does not require adaptation when mounted on different IoT devices. This is actually what is doing, for example, Huawei with Harmony OS. For Huawei, it was crucial to find out another operating system after the government administration that imposed to US suppliers to stop selling components to Huawei, right? And Google included. So Google had to stop dealing with Huawei in terms of supplying of its operating system. So the company said, okay, we will do by ourselves. They are kind of building this operating system, Harmony OS, based on the microkernel. And the idea is to offer maximum flexibility. So we will have the same operating system in all Huawei products. The same is trying to do Google with its Fuchsia operating system, again, based on microkernel, an operating system that will not require any adaptation when mounted on different IoT devices. So why firms are investing in consumer IoT products? Why consumer electronic firms are investing in consumer IoT products? Well, like I said, one of the key reasons is to enhance consumer experience and retention. So they want to build walled garden. The idea is to lock in consumer in a platform. So once you, as a consumer, get familiar with a platform, it could be MIUI by Xiaomi, or iOS by Apple, or Tizen by Samsung, or Harmony OS by Huawei, or Fuchsia by Google, then when you will have to decide which IoT product to purchase, regardless of whether it is a washing machine or a drone or a smart TV, probably in the near future, you will choose products that are compatible, perfectly compatible with that platform. So this is a quote taken from an interview we made to a product manager at Samsung Italia. We were lucky enough, I was not there, but there was a colleague of mine in Las Vegas in January 2020 at the Consumer Electronics Show. We were lucky enough to participate to this conference before the pandemic exploded. And these managers of Samsung said that we have an ecosystem of smart devices, of IoT devices that can be perfectly managed with our IoT platform called Smart Things. So you can use our IoT devices with other platforms, but you won't get the same user experience. Okay, you won't be able to fully exploit the functionality of our products. So you see, once consumers are aware about this, they will probably be loyal to the specific brand that have built up the platform itself, right? So there's an issue about enhancing consumer experience and retention by creating an ecosystem of internet connected devices that perfectly work together. So once you are in, once you get familiar with the platforms, you are kind of locked in, right? These are usually called walled gardens, okay, walled gardens. Once you are in, you have walls around you that are switching costs, right? So in order to switch to another platform, it might be costly, both in terms of learning and in terms of money, okay, because it would mean purchasing product of other brands. And second, there's an issue related to the understanding and predicting of consumer behaviors by gathering data about your their habits. Okay, so this bunch of internet connected devices allows users to exchange data to control this ecosystem of internet connected devices, but they also allow the companies to get informed about what users are doing. Okay, obviously there are issues about privacy here, but data collection is very important for company in order to provide customized solution in line with different users profiles. So I would like to make the case of two companies and compare the IoT strategy now. The first is Xiaomi. So Xiaomi was established in 2010 as a software company. So we are used to know Xiaomi as a smartphone vendor, and not only as a smartphone vendor, but as a vendor of IoT products. I'm not very familiar about what's happening in Spain, but I'm sure that you also have Mi Store in Spain, right? I don't know whether you can confirm, like own branded store by the company. We have in Italy. I'm sure that there are others in Europe. We have hundreds of them in China and in Asia. Okay, so but the company began as a software vendors. So it developed in 2010 its operating system MIUI based on Android. But how the company arrived at that platform? Okay, so at the end of the 2000, three factors were kind of changing the consumer electronic industry in China, the mobile phone industry in China. First, mobile phones and the internet were becoming commodities. Okay, so after the introduction of the iPhone in 2007, the trigger smartphone revolution, there was an impressive growth of use of the internet. So from 2006 to 2010, the penetration rate increased 200%, meaning that consumer in China were getting very, very familiar about the internet, and most of them were surfing the internet using the phone. Okay, there was an increase in the penetration rates of mobile phone from 2006 till 2010 of 100%. Okay, so internet and the smartphone were becoming a commodities. Second, the type of phones were changing a lot. Okay, so in particular, Google Android, introduced in 2008, were massively lowering the barriers to entry to new vendors into the market. So Apple did not license its iOS to any vendor, okay, because Apple wanted to have its platform only on its product. Symbian of Nokia were in free fall, okay. So the company allowed other vendors, were actually allowing other vendors to have its operating system installed for free in 2010. This was not sufficient to kind of slow down the collapse of the company. Microsoft, well, it actually was performing increasingly well in terms of operating system, but there were a decreasing number of players that wanted this operating system mounted on their phone because it costs. Okay, Microsoft asked and said vendors to pay from $20 to $30 per phone, and Android instead had the same performance of iOS, but it was for free because Google gave it Android for free to any vendors. Okay, so the obvious choice was go to Android. But then what's happened? The third factor. The third factor was that throughout the second half of the 2000, Google and all its money-making products and services were progressively banned in China. Okay, so the point is that, I mean, there are many issues here, but just to extremely synthesize, the Chinese government wanted Google to share the data that it was collecting from users into the Chinese market. Google wanted to maintain privacy on this data, as it was actually doing in all other countries, and said, look, if you do not allow me to work this way in China, I will give up. Okay, I will exit the market. And actually, this was the decision of Google, because the government said, if you want to stay in, you need to disclose this kind of information. Google said no. Okay, no way, I will exit the market. So the Google was progressively banned, and if so meaning that most of services that we could access to all over the world in China were no more available. Google Search, Google Email, Google Maps, and Google Play. Yeah, a question mark was actually what was going on to Android, right? Well, actually, Android, being an open source platform and an open source operating system, it continued to be working into the Chinese market, but without the Google suite. Okay, so all revenue-making services that Google used to make money, and so a basic version of Android without Google Play and without the Google suite. Okay, this was a tremendous opportunity for other firms to build up app stores working on this basic version of Android, selling applications, right? Obviously disclosing all information that the Chinese government wanted actually Google to disclose, right? And one of the first handset vendors that was able to capture this opportunity was Xiaomi. So Xiaomi entered the market, the mobile phone market in 2010 with a platform called MIUI that was very similar to Google Android, but it was actually customized for Chinese consumers. So it was equipped with an app store, the Mi Store, that contained many applications, most of them very similar to those applications that we could find on Google Android. But first, they were customized, most of them were customized for Chinese consumers. They were not for free, so consumers had to pay to purchase this kind of application. And the company was willing to share information that he was collecting on consumer purchasing this app with the Chinese government, okay? So there was no problem related to privacy because the company agreed with the Chinese government to kind of disclose all information that he was collecting from consumers. This platform was so successful that in 2011 the company decided to enter the market with its own smartphone, and this smartphone actually was sold at cost of production, right? Because the goal was not to make money from sales of the smartphone, but the goal was to use the smartphone, the hardware, as a vehicle to diffuse the platform. So the idea was to put this MIUI in as many hands as possible, okay? Because once the consumer is logged in, it will start like using also the Mi Store, it will start downloading application from the Mi Store, and this was an impressive revenue making strategy, okay? So again, using the hardware, the smartphone as a vehicle to diffuse the software. Since the internet penetration was increasing massively, the company decided to, since on the one hand, the company wanted to sell this product, this hardware at cost of production, so it has to reduce manufacturing and marketing cost at the minimum, okay, because it wanted to have something at the same level of quality of Apple, but sold at half price, because again, the goal was not to monetize from sales of the hardware, but was to use the hardware as a vehicle to diffuse the software. So it took advantage of these other opportunities, the diffusion of the internet. And then we come the point related to Internet of Things. So the company cut distribution costs because it sold its product only through its website. The company cut advertising costs because it relied on word of mouth on social media. The company cut R&D costs because the company collaborative innovate with users online. Every week, once per week, Xiaomi engineers sat in front of a computer talking with Mi Fan, okay, in official and unofficial blogs, asking Xiaomi user whether they found bugs in the hardware, in the software, how would it have been possible to modify this bug, and so on and so forth. So you see, it starts talking with consumers and ask consumer what they want the company to modify both in the hardware and the software. Again, using the internet, okay? So this led to a business model very different from the one of the other vendors in the market, that were traditionally focusing on brick and mortar store, offline ads, and intense R&D spending, okay? The company instead used a completely different business model. So it was a business model that was internet-centric, okay? Because the way the company was distributing the product, the way the company was communicating with consumers, the way the company was innovating was internet-related, right? And it was asset light. It was asset light in a sense that the company was abandoning the idea of physical asset and EV R&D cost, right? In terms of performance, this led to a company that from 0 units sold, because it was actually a software vendor in 2010, in 4 years it became the largest vendor in China, okay? So if we look at the market share in terms of units sold in China of smartphone in 2014, Xiaomi was already the largest vendor. And then it comes the Internet of Things. So since Xiaomi was kind of talking with the savvy users, right? So very users that were kind of very familiar with the internet, because the company was selling the product initially only online. The company start thinking that its strategy might be, I mean, it should be internet, not only internet centric, but there was an ecosystem of other products that might become smart and internet connected. And yeah, the goal was to kind of, again, lock in the players within this MIUI platform that was becoming very familiar, okay, in China, but in the following years also in the neighborhood country, mainly in Asia and later on also in Europe. So the goal was, why don't we lock in consumer into our platform and start building up an ecosystem of internet connected devices, since our clients are very familiar with the net, with the internet, and start selling these IoT products. So the first quote is taken from Hugo Barra, who was the vice president of Xiaomi in 2015, and he said the game in China is building walled garden, like I said before, right? And getting consumer to stay into the garden. So we will start from this platform, okay, MIUI, that is very familiar. We are able to like get this platform very diffuse thanks to the aggressive pricing we are able to fixed on our smartphone, that again we are using as a vehicle for the diffusion of the platform. When the platform is in the hands of millions of users, okay, since these platforms can be compatible, we will make this platform perfectly compatible with an ecosystem of internet connected devices to which consumers will be locked in, right? So the company start creating this endless ecosystem of IoT products. Interestingly, these products, like I said before, were not designed and manufactured by the company itself because they are huge. These are dozens, maybe hundreds of products. So the company could not decided to rely on this collaboration with third-party partners from day one. And this is a kind of business model very different from the one of Apple. So it started partnering with dozens of startup companies, very innovative startup companies, asking them to design this product to be in line with philosophy of having a premium phone. So these IoT products have to be kind of in line in terms of quality with the IoT smartphones. So no compromise in terms of quality, but they had to be designed to be perfectly compatible with the MIUI platforms. Okay, so if you want to exploit 100% of functionalities of these products, you need to have MIUI. Okay, so we actually moved from an internet-centric business model to an IoT-centric business model. So here I've highlighted the main changes with respect to the previous business model. So key partners for the company became the manufacturers of complementary products of IoT devices. Okay, you see the company did not design and manufacture this product by itself, but it's outsourced the manufacturing of this product to third-party partners. The company understood that some of these products need to be sold offline, because some of these products like smart TV or washing machines or drones, I mean, consumer wanted to touch this product before purchasing them, right? So they understood the strategic importance of having brick and mortar store, right? So they start both distributing and communicating with consumer also by means of an online channel, of an offline channel, right? So it's it's interesting, this business model, because there's a kind of blending between outsourcing, because the company is not designing this ecosystem of internet connected devices, but it is asking other firms to design and manufacture these products. The company entered into the equity of these companies for no more than 50%, because it wants to help them financially, but leave them a kind of independence. So a blending between outsourcing with downstream vertical integration, right? So the company, on the other hand, understood that in order to deliver, in order to sell this product to consumers, it has to open also a kind of online, offline channels. So the online channel would not be enough to distribute this product to consumers because of the complexity of this ecosystem, right? So in terms of revenues, you can see that over the last year, the percentage of revenues of the companies coming from smartphone is significantly decreasing. Nowadays, it's around 60%. If you look at what happened like 5 years ago, it was close to 100%. The percentage of revenues from IoT devices is kind of increasing massively, and as you can see, this is consistent with its initial philosophy, right? So use the hardware as a vehicle to diffuse the software. So we don't want to make profit out of sales of smartphone, but we want to make profit from other products and services, right? So IoT products generate nearly 10% of gross profits, and related services, application, and so on and so forth, more than 60% of profit, right? So you see, the company says, again, in the last annual report, leveraging our brand and distribution channel, we aim to drive cross-selling between IoT products and smartphone and capture a greater share of the large overseas IoT market. And they also disclose a number that is impressive. We can believe it or not, but they say the number of users with 5 or more devices connected to our IoT platform, so with 5 or more devices, excluding smartphone and laptops, reached 6.2 million. Okay, this is massive. So this means that there are more than 6 million users that have more than 5 Xiaomi internet connected devices, excluding smartphone and laptops, right? Right. So, and in terms of performance, the company is now able to capture 50%, 14% of global market shares. You see, so in 10 days, it's now capturing, I mean, quite a lot of the global smartphone market. And it's interesting in this slide because you see the player I was referring to before, Realme, that is actually doing a kind of copy and paste of Xiaomi strategy, has now a market share that is close to the one of Huawei, right? So these slides kind of suggest that those companies that are able to control both the platform, both the operating system, and use the smartphone as a kind of terminal, remote control for kind of having a perfect coordination with the ecosystem of internet connected devices might be the right strategy, right? So being very aggressive in terms of pricing for high-end devices, the goal is to use the hardware as a vehicle to diffuse the software. So exactly the same strategy of Xiaomi. A completely different strategy is the one of Apple, that instead of having an IoT asset-light strategy, has following more an IoT asset spending strategy. So I will try to run a bit because I'm probably running out of time. So this is the share of revenues of Apple by product category. As you can see, I mean, what immediately emerges is the increasing importance of wearables and home automation devices and internet-related services. So as you can see, personal computers are now really a fraction of the overall revenues. A tablet as well. Mobile phone continue to have a kind of dominant role, but what is emerging is wearable. There is not only smartwatches, it also home appliances and application for home IoT, which are directly developed by Apple, and services. Okay, these are capturing an increasing amount of Apple products. So this is a sign again that the companies has understood that the IoT, both in terms of hardware and software, will be the key for winning the game in the competition for the dominant ecosystem, right? But how the company is pursuing this kind of IoT strategy. Again, with Xiaomi, we had a kind of asset light approach. Is it the same with Apple? Well, here I've collected data from European Union Industrial R&D Investment Scoreboard. So these data about capex are in million euro, and I've compared some companies that apparently should have very different business models. So the capex is capital expenditure, as you may know, is the amount of funds a company spend for building up new technical equipments, physical equipments, or to renew its existing technical equipment. So it could be production plants, building technologies, and so on and so forth. But physical assets, right? So we have companies like Samsung and Intel, for example. It's normal to have billions euros of capex for Samsung, because Samsung produce hardwares, mainly hardwares. Okay, so Samsung is one of the key suppliers of hardwares for consumer electronics. Okay, no way. So it's normal that the company in certain years had a capex that was above 30 billion euro. Okay, which is massive. Intel, say the same. Okay, these are hardware, mainly hardware companies, right? HP, I would say the same. Okay. Then we have other business models like Microsoft and Google, for example, which are software company, but they are even heavily involved in cloud computing. Okay, so they own their data centers. Okay, so it's normal for Google to have in certain years more than 10 billion euro in capex. Okay, these are expenditure for data centers, and the same Microsoft. Okay, Google and Microsoft, Amazon as well. So the idea. So yeah, so the question here is, I mean, why Apple capex is expanding so much? That, I mean, the company says that it's designing its product in California, but these products are assembled as well. So what does makes Apple capex so high? Well, the companies on the one end is, for this IoT strategy, is relying on third-party partners like Amazon Web Services. So it's spending millions of dollars in capex every month. But on the other hand, it is also investing a lot in data centers, because again, it wants to have a kind of independence for its IoT strategy, right? So this is one reason. So spending for data centers. The other reason is that the company is financing some of its partners in this IoT ecosystem, because it wants that these third-party partners are can stay aligned with its development in terms of technologies, right? So if the market has for billions units of I don't know, tablets or smartphone or PC or home appliances with the Apple brands, and if these products, internet connected products, contain chips, components that need to be supplied in huge quantities in order for allowing me to manufacture this product just in time, right? You need to have a manufacturing capacity capable of being aligned with the market, right? So the company is actually financing its partner in order to allow them to keep with this pace of demand, right, from the market. So it's very interesting, because yeah, it's quite opposite from Xiaomi's strategy. So the company is actually conducting an asset spending strategy. So it's investing a lot in its own physical infrastructure. So implication and suggestion for future research, I just want to conclude. So I believe that this competition based on ecosystem of IoT interconnected devices, it's kind of changing the rule of competition as we are as we know from the works of Michael Porter, right? So the idea is that we cannot think in this competition for between ecosystems of IoT interconnected devices. For example, we cannot think about cost leadership just in terms of increasing the scale. So a company will be more efficient than competitors if it will be able to increase its scale and generate like scale economies, right? So or conduct some activities within the value chains at lower cost with respect to competitors. In these competitions of ecosystem of IoT interconnected devices, what will count is kind of being able for firms to share its cost with IoT partners, right? So think about Google. We have Android and modification of the Android platforms in more than 80% of devices, in nearly 30% of tablets, and in more than 5% of smartwatches. Okay, so these companies, these hardware companies, are not Google, but the company is kind of sharing the cost of delivering its ecosystem with hardware manufacturers, right? So again, cost leadership should not be understood only from the point of view of the company itself, but the logic is sharing cost with the ecosystem partners. The same for differentiation. So the classical logic of differentiation was conceived in terms of R&D spending. By spending a lot in terms of R&D, I will be able to produce something that is perceived by consumers as something different. And if I'm able to produce something different, I will be able to charge a premium price to consumers, and this will allow me to generate higher margin. But again, in a competition of ecosystem of IoT interconnected devices, we cannot examine competition in this way. Okay, so companies should instead think about make like a joint effort in terms of innovation capabilities. So kind of collaborating with the ecosystem of IoT interconnect of companies that are in charge of designing or manufacturing this ecosystem of internet connected devices to make them different with respect to competitors. So think about the case of Xiaomi. Again, Xiaomi is controlling the platform, but is not manufacturing the hardware of this endless number of IoT internet connected devices. It is capitalizing on the innovation capabilities of these startups with which the companies collaborate to design and manufacture these products.